Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, who's also the Prime Minister of that country, has announced in a press conference that Bangladesh is the long lost brother of Pakistan, and he's announced a visit to Dhaka soon in February. He said that he'll be going to Malaysia, and on the way he'll also be halting in Dhaka. Now he said that there was an interaction between the leaders of the two countries, Shehbaz Sharif and the chief executive of Bangladesh, Muhammad Yunus, and in those discussions, the foreign ministers also talked, and then it was decided that he'll be going to Bangladesh, and he said that Bangladesh is the long lost brother of Pakistan, Bichda Hua Bhai. At a time when there are minorities which are under attack in Bangladesh, their places of worship have been under attack. You can see on the screen more than 2,000 attacks on minorities in Bangladesh that has affected over 1,700 families, and we're seeing everyday reports of such attacks taking place in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, has called all those incidents taking place, the attacks on minorities, as a genocide. Now, remember, Sheikh Hasina had to fled that country when that uprising took place, and she is in India since then. Now, Bangladesh has requested India to send Sheikh Hasina back to Bangladesh. India has accepted that it's got communication from Bangladesh, but nothing more than that. Now, those are the developments that are taking place, fast paced developments that are happening in India's neighborhood. Ishaq Dar going to Bangladesh soon, calling it as a long lost brother, Bichda Hua Bhai. Ironically, Ishaq Dar represents a government which is itself in question. Some say that government has come to power as a result of a rigged election. To discuss more, we joined by an eminent panel. We joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, and over the course of our discussion, we joined by other panelists as well. Ambassador Veena Sikri, an interesting development, choice of words by Ishaq
Yeah.
Dar, Bichra Hua Bhai, and he'll be soon going back to Bangladesh. How do you see this development?
Well, I think one must remember that in 1971, when the Bangladesh Liberation War took place and the genocide was unearthed on the people of Bangladesh, the two partners were the Pakistan Army and the Jamaat-e-Islami. So these are the two partners, and with them, of course, they had all the Razakars and the other groups and so on. But
Yeah.
these are the two main partners. Now, today in Bangladesh, after the Sheikh Hasina left the country, it is the Jamaat-e-Islami and the other Islamic parties who are calling the
Mm,
shots. They are the real people in power. And I
mm,
think Professor Muhammad Yunus is just a front, it's just a facade. I think the real
right.
decisions are being made by the Jamaat-e-Islami and other Islamic parties. They are now trying to reverse what happened in 1971. The
Mm,
victory of the people of Bangladesh, the victory of India and Bangladesh fighting shoulder to shoulder with a joint command, that seems to be anathema to them. And they want, in a very short period of time, to reverse the history, to wipe out the memory of 1971 from the people's minds of Bangladesh. And it is a development, it is a process that I think the people of Bangladesh do not seem to like, because we've had statements like, for example, Ghulam Azam, who was the Amir of the Jamaat Islami in 1971. His son was in the army, and now he's resigned or retired from the army, and he made a statement recently that we have to forget about 1971, we have to reverse 1971, we have to change the constitution, change the national anthem, change the national flag. And there was such a reaction from the people. People started getting to it and singing the national anthem in every nukkad of Dhaka and even abroad, so that the authorities had to come back and say, no, 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 we're not going to change the army had to come back and say that we're not changing the constitution, we're not changing the flag. So this is something, it's a deliberate process, and you've seen in the course of 150 days only up to now, or less than that, the decisions they have taken. Earlier there was not a single cargo ship from Pakistan which visited Dhaka. Never.
yeah.
50 years, the last 50 years. Now they've restarted that process.
Yeah.
Earlier, any cargo coming from Pakistan to Bangladesh had to be subject to physical inspection. That has been
Yeah.
removed. We already know that in these two cargo ships, there have been explosives found. There have been members of Jaish-e-Mohammed who've come into Bangladesh quietly and surreptitiously. The students are coming in from Bangladesh, from Pakistan for the first time to study in Bangladesh universities. And there is military cooperation revived between Bangladesh and Pakistan. And they say that from February onwards, and maybe Ishaq Dar is timing his visit with that 4 major generals will be stationed with various divisions in Bangladesh and will be training the people. Now, this is something that even Indian major generals had not been stationed in Bangladesh in the last 50 years. A lot of Bangladesh army and other defense forces came to India for training, and there were a lot of interaction and exchange of visits and so on. There is talk now that the Chief of Army Staff of Bangladesh will come very soon on a visit to India. So these things are definitely happening, but what they are trying to do with Pakistan is unprecedented, and it's a matter of great concern for India's security interests. We know what happens across the western border. We know how that is being controlled. Our security interests are being looked after along the IB and the LOC. Certainly, we don't want the situation in Bangladesh to go anywhere near that. And we do know that with the porous 4,000-kilometer long border, there is a great worry. I myself was High Commissioner in Bangladesh when the BNP
Yeah.
was in, and Jamaat-e-Islami was an alliance partner of the BNP. So we know at that time the support they were giving to the Indian insurgent groups in northeast of India. We know the support that was happening, and we know that every terrorist act in India at that time had a Bangladeshi footprint, because people were coming from Pakistan into Bangladesh and then coming into India for the terrorist attacks. So certainly this is a matter of great concern and worry that history should not repeat itself.
Right. We're also joined at this point by Dr. Mubashir Hassan. He's at University of Oslo in Norway. But before we go to him, let's actually play that soundbite of Ishaq Dar. Very interesting what he said. If we can play that before we
उसके
go
साथ
to.
अभी हम जब रिसेंटली जब कायरो में थे तो बांग्लादेश के जो चीफ एग्जेक्टिव हैं इस वक्त डॉक्टर यूनुस, तो उन्होंने भी उनको इनवाइट किया गया, उन्होंने असूली तौर पे इन प्रिंसिपल इनविटेशन को एक्सेप्ट किया, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि मैं क्यों नहीं विजिट करता उनके विजिट से पहले। तो चूंकि रास्ता एक ही है, तो मैं जाते ही आते डेट्स वर्कआउट हो रही हैं कि मलेशिया के साथ मैं इंशाल्लाह ढाका की विजिट भी करूंगा। बांग्लादेश की विजिट मैं समझता हूं कि बहुत ज़रूरी है। हमारा वो एक भाई है, बिछड़ा हुआ भाई है, और हमें पूरी कोऑपरेशन करनी चाहिए उनके साथ, और इंशाल्लाह हमारी हुकूमत की प्रायोरिटी है इंशाल्लाह कि हम मिलके उनके साथ काम करें। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह ऑन द इकोनॉमिक फ्रंट एंड ट्रेड फ्रंट थिंग्स आर मूविंग वेरी फास्ट, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
Dr. Mubashir Hassan, this was a statement of Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister, who's also the Foreign Minister, Ishaq Dar. We're seeing rapid developments taking place in Bangladesh, seemingly Bangladesh getting very close to Pakistan. At the same time, relations between Bangladesh and India are dipping. India has expressed its concerns about the minorities in that country, and also Sheikh Hasina is in India, and Bangladesh has asked India to send her back. How do you see these developments which are taking place at such a fast pace? Seems like Bangladesh is drifting towards Pakistan.
I think it's not, even if it's drifting, it things takes time, and it's not a government that is politically elected, right? So obviously there will be an election, and then a government will come for 5 years. And if we see there is a change in Bangladesh's policy towards India, which I do not think Bangladesh can afford to drift away from India, because India and Bangladesh is very closely knit geographically, right? I mean, so for the interest of both countries, I think that it is a visible and viable option for both countries to work. work together. Coming back to your question, I think Dr. Muhammad Yunus is trying to balance it. They had this discussion with Bina Sikri ma'am the other night as well, that one could see it as a balancing act. Probably it's drifting more than what it used to be under Hasina's regime, but there was also criticism of Sheikh Hasina's policy that she was totally drifted towards India. So I think it's a normal diplomatic process until and unless a significant agreement or something that takes place. I would see it as a normal process, because at the moment what we can see is a rhetorical tension between Bangladesh and India.
Right. Vinasikri, 2 points that he raised. That one, it is not a government that has been elected by the people, it's an interim government. Number second, that the government is trying to assert Bangladesh as an independent sovereign country rather than one which is seen close to India. What is your take on these two developments? What is important here also is that this statement has come from Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister. Now, the government in Pakistan is also in question because a perception is that it was Imran Khan which was winning the elections, but there was a rigged election and this government came to power. And on the other hand, there is a government in Bangladesh, which is again an interim government. It's not sure how long will these two governments last, and then probably there will be new government, at least in Bangladesh, and then perhaps we'll see a different approach.
Well, quite frankly, I think you can't have it both ways. You can't call this a government and then say that they can do what they want. It is not a constitutionally valid regime. It's not a government at all. It's been appointed, they have sworn allegiance to a constitution where there is no provision for interim government. So really, constitutionally, there is no legitimacy to this government, and it shouldn't really be existing. But even if you talk of the system of caretaker government that existed before, and actually a system of caretaker government has been there only for 2 elections in the entire history of Bangladesh. Even then, that interim government was A, supposed to last only for 90 days, and B, during this time, they were supposed to only maintain law and order and prepare for the elections. Now, this government has gone way beyond that. I mean, this is absolutely unheard of, that a government which is not constitutionally valid, not elected, and even the whole narrative of a student uprising is not real at all, because we know that it was the Jamaat-e and the Islami Chhatra Shibir, the students' wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Even the students themselves have acknowledged it. Sajjis Islam made a statement 2 days ago saying that, the Islami Chhatra Shibir played the biggest role in the whole thing. So this whole narrative of even a student's uprising is not real. Then why is this government doing this? Why are they doing it? What is this?
Because Venus Sikri, what they're saying is that they're not there just to create conditions for a new election, but also to bring in reforms, according to them. Reform the judiciary and
there's no legality for that process. Who is there? The people of Bangladesh are not happy with this process at all. I mean, to say that, is there some demand for this, except for this small group of students and the Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islami Chhatra Shibir, who are the ones, the radical lot, including the Hifadhat-e-Islam, including Hizb ut-Tahrir, including, the Islami Andolan Bangladesh. All these groups, they're wanting their own version of what it was before 1971. And you can see what they're trying to do. And, to sort of blame everything on India, this is not on at all. And then at the same time, you want your 50,000 tons of rice, you want your onions, you want everything. This is not the way to make a real relationship. And in fact, I would say that under Sheikh Hasina, that we got a recognition of India's security requirements. I'm not even talking of any other kind of relationship, but the security interest and the policy of malice towards none, friendship with all, which even this government repeats sometimes. It doesn't mean that you do things which will affect the security interests of your biggest neighbor, 4,000 kilometers. So I think that this is a matter of great worry for the government and the people of India, and there's a very strong reaction in places like West Bengal, in places like Assam, because we can see the people who are trying to enter and so on. So I think that if at all, if at all, this regime in Bangladesh is interested, they should be willing to talk to India about it, but they made no interest in talking to India. No, none of them have come and made a visit or have come to India, and they keep talking through the media, that this is it, and oh, India was doing this and blaming India. Everything that Sheikh Hasina did was India's fault. So this is not the way in which you want to develop a relationship. All these indications are a matter of great concern and worry for India, because it's dealing with a government that is not even there, which is not even a legitimate regime. And you're talking about reforms before elections. This is a matter of big controversy within Bangladesh. Today, as of today, the BNP and Muhammad Yunus, they have a difference of opinion on that. The BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami, everybody has a difference of opinion on that. All they want is that if you're going to call yourself some kind of caretaker government, and there are some moves in the judicial process, and again, the judicial process, I mean, you appointed judges of your own. The previous judges were surrounded by the students and forced to resign, and new people have been appointed. I mean, this does not make for any kind of a valid governmental decision. But then these judges are now doing, whatever, making their own decisions and trying to undo a constitutional amendment that had been done under Sheikh Hasina, and saying, oh, it will now go to the Supreme Court, and this constitutional amendment was not valid, and we want the caretaker government to be back. But the caretaker government was supposed to be there only for 90 days. So, and to only have elections, how is this? You're not able to control the law and order. There is no law and order of any kind in Bangladesh. The attacks against the minorities are continuing every single day, and there's complete denial. When our foreign secretary was there for one day, the 9th of December, he had these very frank and candid discussions. And all the time before that, before the 9th of December, the Bangladesh media was up in arms saying, this is all Indian media propaganda. Indian media don't know what they are saying. Indian media are all rubbish. And they are saying that they are attacks on minorities. There is no such thing. We know there is no such thing. Although one of their own best papers, the Prathama Alo, had reported from 5th to 20th August, there were at least 1,608 attacks. Anyway, they kept on saying this is all Indian media propaganda. Daily Star wrote a big editorial on this subject. And then one day after our foreign secretary is there, suddenly, oh yes, we know there have been 88 attacks and 70 people have been arrested. This is a very minuscule number. It's nothing compared to the reality of the attacks. And, even the UNHCR, who was called in to give a report on what happened before, in July and August, they have said we can't give a report because we're not being given any evidence. Nobody's helping us. There's no evidence from the thanas. So I think that, we have to have a reality check on what this government is. And, announcing decisions like this is certainly not reflective of the will of the people. It is certainly not reflective of any stability. And it's certainly not reflective of taking into account the interests of your biggest neighbor, which is India, because you've never talked about it, India at all.
Right. Dr. Mubashir Hassan, the point is that it would create conditions for elections 90 days before the elections will be announced. Now, hasn't the government gone much ahead of that? Where does it have the mandate to carry out a set of reforms, which are very big, concrete measures? Reforms, you can call them reforms if the government may want to, but these are big concrete measures, judiciary, executive. They're going to change many things, and there's no timeline for elections. Number one. Number two, what has the government done to reach out to India, which is its biggest neighbor, and it has historic ties with India? The government has done nothing. So if the relationship between India and Bangladesh is dipping, it is no wonder.
I mean, it's a matter of perspective, I would argue. I think it's not the relationship between Bangladesh and India probably is facing a bit of setback, but I don't see evidence that it's kind of the way you say it's dipping. And in terms of your first question, where you say that this government is supposed to be there for 90 days, it's not a caretaker government. We haven't seen anything like this before. In Bangladesh's history, we haven't seen a prime minister fleeing the country, suddenly. We haven't seen anything that a government shoots down students and protesters indiscriminately. So this is a new experience for Bangladesh in all fronts. But I would think that the election would be set at the end of 2025 or beginning of 2026. And I base my assumption from the statement that are given by the chief advisor and also his press secretary. But Bina Sikri madam is also right that the opposition parties patience are kind of running a bit thin, because without a political government, which I again agree with Bina Sikri, that stability is not really going to be a challenge for a government that is an interim government. But also, when I hear about Bangladesh in Indian, and I'm not blaming, just to say, in Indian media, I think the narrative in some media is quite gloomy and quite depressing about Bangladesh. Whereas I also talked about it in the last show where I was invited, that the Economist magazine ranked Bangladesh as the country of the year for 2024. And one of the reasons it ranked it, because it got rid of Sheikh Hasina. And in that report, Economist magazine underpinned that, they have a record of human rights violation, and also not only human rights violation, also the big number of money being siphoned off and so forth. So, and I've seen a report in Indian media that it is a Western perspective. So if I take a step back, and if I disassociate myself from any perspectives, I would say that there is a narrative which says that Bangladesh is the country of the year 2024 because it got rid of an authoritarian government. On the other hand, there is a criticism of the Economist magazine in the sense that, it is a Western perspective. But I think one of the ways to understand the legitimacy of Bangladesh government is that we don't see large-scale protest in the country at the moment. Yes, people who belong to former ruling party are underground or hiding, but if the people are not happy, then they would have taken the street. And this government has no way a capacity to be as brutal like Sheikh Hasina. Just to underpin one point, that from 2009 to 2022, Sheikh Hasina's government extrajudicially killed 2,500 Bangladeshis. They didn't went to jail, they didn't went to courts, and also over 1,000 Bangladeshis were extrajudicially
These are figures of, obviously they cannot be confirmed or denied. These are figures that have come out, but
by
yes,
the human rights
yes,
organizations,
by the organization that have
So
put out these figures. But basically, the
yes,
point that he's saying is that this is an interim government. If it is not so popular, why aren't people protesting against it? He says that people seem to be happy with it, the way, whatever it is doing, the reform process or
I mean,
anything that is being carried out, or its foreign policy. The people seem to be okay with it.
well, I think what you're not aware of, perhaps, is that today in Bangladesh, the situation is worse than under any time under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. I mean, he's talking about enforced disappearances. How many Awami Leaguers have been killed? How many minorities have been killed? How many Buddhists have been attacked? How many Christians have been attacked? The Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Church of Dhaka has made a statement saying there is no stoppage in the attacks, and the reason is that there is no check on them. There is no arrests. There is no punishment. There is no criticism of these people.
Right.
Now, the gagging of the media, the Bangladesh media is completely gagged. Completely gagged. Boards have been changed. Hundreds of journalists are in jail accused of murder. Even Muhammad Yunus has spoken about it. The Newspaper Owners Association of Bangladesh has spoken about it. They have described mob justice in Bangladesh. So I don't know on what basis your panelist is saying that this is a very fine situation and everybody's very happy.
Doc-
So there is
doc-
a complete gang. No, may I just finish? If there
yeah,
is a complete gang on the media, you'd have no idea what is happening in the country. It's not appearing in the media. When it comes in the Indian media, it's described as propaganda. So I think that the whole situation is unreal. It's not legitimate. I think taking the economist's word for it, as I said last time, I think on your show as well, this has dented the credibility of the economists hugely. I think they're going to take many years to get over the credibility that you're calling a country which has so-called authoritarian regime has been changed to be replaced by something which is more authoritarian than anything that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina could ever do, and which has reduced the growth rate from 6 to 8% to 2.5%. The people are, their inflation, the lack of jobs. They're coming across the border into India for this purpose. The Chief Minister of Assam said 1,000 people in a week just wanting jobs. They think we got nothing there. We got no food. We can't buy food. We have no jobs. The factories are shut.
right,
And so the situation it's bizarre. It's bizarre to think that the people of Bangladesh are not even aware of what they're going through. And I
right.
know people from outside Bangladesh have come even to India and they've described what is happening. They've described what's happening to their relatives. We know the situation. We are very aware of the situation. So one person sitting somewhere abroad and talking to another person like the economist sitting somewhere else abroad doesn't make for reality. It doesn't
Right.
make for reality. It makes
Doc,
for a
doc,
make-believe world.
Dr. Mubashir Hassan, the thing is that whatever is happening in Bangladesh, people are closely watching it. And one of the developments that have recently taken place, the Hindu monk, Chinmay Das, first of all, no lawyer appeared on his behalf. Then one of the lawyers was beaten up. We saw his photo in the ICU. And now the court has denied bail to him. Now, there may be a process in place with the result of that all of this is happening, but the signaling is quite obvious that if lawyers desist from defending him and then the court denies bail, it sends across a signal.
So, I was in Bangladesh for 3 weeks last month. So I'm not someone who is sitting from abroad and saying things. And it's not only Economist magazine. New York Times also published a big report recently how students, which our other panelists said they're Islamist, how students are building democracy. So I'm going back to my point is that there is a difference in perspective. So we really need to go through and see what's unreal. And I do believe in justice for all. So if someone is not getting lawyer, and if that is politically motivated, it shouldn't happen. I mean, everyone should have proper judicial support to appear before court.
Right. One of yes, Veena Sikri, yes. Please unmute. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, I'm glad you raised the question about Chinmoy Krishnadas Brahmachari, because this is a classic example. The state is obliged to provide a lawyer if nobody can come. And we know that there were threats from the Supreme Court Association, Lawyers Association of Bangladesh, telling anybody, if you go and defend him, you will be, whatever, something drastic will happen to you. And the fact is that the Minority Association, which is about 15 million people, they have made an 8-point demand to the government of Bangladesh, which the government of Bangladesh is completely ignored. No newspaper in Bangladesh has been allowed to carry it even. And not only that, and all simple demand like rights, law for the protection of minorities, the Ministry for the Protection of Minorities, that all the Vested Property Return Act should be implemented, and the people who have attacked the minority should be arrested and punished, and these attacks should stop. Very simple. But the government is pretending that the 15 million people of their own citizens don't exist. And how can you call that a reality when 15 million people are being ignored? And these citizens have said, we want to stay in Bangladesh. We are citizens of this country. We want our rights. On the other hand, the home advisor of the Bangladesh interim regime, I cannot call it a government, I will call it a regime or an administration or whatever. The home advisor said, we are a Muslim majority country. We don't think we should give jobs to the Hindus. We're not going to take them in the police. 1,500 applications by Hindus for joining the police rejected. We're not going to take them in the government. And these kind of statements by an unelected government The people of Bangladesh are not like that. I've also lived there. I don't visit for 3 weeks at a time. I've lived there for 3 years. And I'm in touch with the people, on a regular basis. So I think that, one should be aware of the reality and not pretend that the New York Times knows the reality. We know a lot of New York Times stories, which at one time were, front page, 5 column, 10 column, and then after 2 weeks were buried somewhere because they were totally proved to be unreal. We know that. We know about the New York Times. We know about the Economist. All that is well known. But what about your own media? What about gagging your own media? What about cancelling hundreds of accreditation cards? What about putting journalists in jail, throwing them out of jobs? I mean, do you know what you're doing to the people of Bangladesh? I mean, they don't know what to do
You know,
next.
Dr. Mubashir Hassan, these are obviously details that are there. They cannot be ignored. I just wanted to come to the point of Chenmai Krishnadas again. At the time of his, Bangladesh court during his bail hearing said, and I quote, Chenmai Krishnadas bail could create anarchy. Now, this is the statement that's come out from the court. How? How will it create anarchy? Because, see, you go by the merits of the case. Whatever the merits of the case, if he has done something, he's not done something. But this is a very sweeping statement that it will create anarchy. So, obviously, when these such statements come out from the institutions of that country, then people question.
I mean, there are challenges for Bangladesh judiciary. No one is saying it's a judiciary of finest quality. For the past 15 years, Bangladesh judiciary under Sheikh Hasina was among the bottom in the world, according to the World Justice Project. So there are ways to understand countries. There are indicators. So it is not the finest judiciary we're talking about. And I'm not an expert on judiciary, so if there is, Bangladesh's judiciary has always been politicized, and no one is politicized more than Sheikh Hasina. And there are many other cases, but I'm not defending the case of Jinwa not having lawyer, but there are many other cases where plaintiffs were forcefully disappeared from the court premises and found in India, and other places. So it is a fact on the ground. So it's not a blame game. It is a fact on the ground that it is an interim government. It has many challenges. In future, it would be a new time kind of politics that Bangladesh would see. But I'm not saying Sheikh Hasina is coming back soon, anytime. So
You raised
we need to move forward from that.
You raise the point of Sheikh Hasina. It's very important
Yes.
to discuss Sheikh Hasina because even today the MEA has said that they've got a communication from Bangladesh about sending Sheikh Hasina back. Nothing more than, if we can play that soundbite first and then we can speak further.
First, your question regarding Bangladesh. A week back I had confirmed that we had received a communication from the Bangladesh authorities in respect of former PM Sheikh Hasina. Further than that, I have nothing to add at this point in time.
Veena Sikri, this is one point of difference between the two governments. Sheikh Hasina is in India. She fled from Bangladesh, came to India. Right. Now, Bangladesh wants her to be sent back. The fears are that if she is sent back, she will not face a fair trial and there is a possibility she can even be hanged or executed. Now, how is this going to, what is the way forward as far as this particular question is concerned, the question of Sheikh Hasina?
Any two countries, and this is where again my question comes, that a judiciary in Bangladesh today, which has been replaced by a mob, by mobocracy, by mob justice, I do not know whether they are aware of what is going on, because extradition agreement between two countries is a very highly technical and legal process. You cannot do extradition by sending a diplomatic note verbal. Extradition means that if you think that somebody who's living in another country has committed crimes in your country, you have to have the judicial process completed in your own country, give the evidence, say what she's being charged with, show the evidence, this is the charge, this is the result, give the letters rogatory, all the technical documents. Nothing has been done. It's just a diplomatic note verbal saying, this is to be done. So now the point is that when the extradition process has not even been initiated properly, Government of India is fully within its rights to not make any comment on it and to completely stay silent on the subject, because it's clear that this is a political gimmick that is being done just to show that, that everything is the fault of Sheikh Hasina and everything is the fault of India. I don't think that, this is a process which is at all serious, because all that, our co-panelist is saying is that everything you say about this government, but Sheikh Hasina did the same thing. Now, if you're claiming to be better than Sheikh Hasina, if you're claiming that you have created this great, sort of freedom and so on, where is it? All you're saying is that no, but Sheikh Hasina did this, so we are trying to do the same thing. And the people of Bangladesh are saying, but they are doing exactly what Sheikh Hasina is being accused of doing, and probably doing it in a worse way. Like I told you, there's never a situation where so many, journalists, where so many people, individuals have lost their jobs, have lost their way of livelihood, and they don't know quite what to do because there's nobody to listen to them. So I think that the extradition process, if they're serious about it, they would carry it out in a proper legal manner. And they would, I would imagine that one would imagine that, they would send somebody to India to talk about it, to discuss it. No, but there's nothing of the kind. There's not a single, there have been some technical level discussions from between Bangladesh and India. But today in the newspapers, I saw for the first time that maybe the Chief of Army Staff of Bangladesh has expressed an interest in visiting India, and maybe such a visit will take place. But it'll be the first one where we will have, because the army today is the only solid authority there. Everything else is not really constitutional at all. So if the Chief of Army Staff comes to India, I'm sure he'll be welcomed and discussions will be held. So, mutually beneficial, as we have always done with Bangladesh, then you have to have a dialogue. It cannot be done through the media. So far in the last 115 days, everything is through the media. They're all statements which come in the media. The media is allowed to carry those statements in full force. But a lot of other things are not coming in the media. So one doesn't know quite what to believe of what is happening in Bangladesh. And I think that the situation is very difficult for the people of Bangladesh. I don't think a handful of advisors, can speak on behalf of the whole country. They're not even elected.
Right. Last word to you, Dr. Mubashir Hassan. If the government, if the dispensation there is saying that Sheikh Hasina, the way that she ruled the country was not correct, was not right, but there are allegations that the current dispensation is doing exactly the same thing, that it is doing the same thing. So how is it different? And also on the question of Sheikh Hasina, Abdul Awal Mintu, VC of BNP, has said Bangladesh has the right to ask for Hasina's extradition. So the question of Sheikh Hasina and the performance of the government and the way that it's conducting its affairs. Dr. Mubashir Hassan.
So before answering that, I just want to underpin that I think Dr. Muhammad Yunus went to Indian High Commission in Bangladesh to sign condolences for Professor Manmohan Singh, and there are photos that Indian High Commission and Dr. Muhammad Yunus, High Commissioner and Dr. Muhammad Yunus is sitting. So it's not entirely true that Yunus has not reaching out. I think he's trying more, and the statement of the army chief is an addition to that move. And I think how we see what is truth, and there are ways to understand a country's situation in political science, and there are indicators by the human rights groups and others. So if we claim that situation is similar now, then down the line after 6 months to 1 year, when the country reports will be published by the various democracy indicators, then we would have evidence in our hand that the Hasina government and this government is similar. So until we have any evidence from the organizations who monitor the situation, I would not accept that claim that it is similar to this.
Yeah. So obviously,
I don't think you're willing to accept foreigners' evidence, but you're not willing to accept the evidence of your own people.
It's not foreigners, madam. I mean, I'm a researcher, so I have to follow some nitty-gritty, and you know that really well as you teach in the university. So I would need those evidence, foreigners, Bangladeshis, the institutions. I would accept that, and then yes, of course, you would be right.
Why
You
not,
know
why
what?
not accept the evidence of the people of Bangladesh, what they are saying, and even the foreigners, the UN HCR, Human Rights Commission team, which was there, which has been twice in an effort to collect evidence to show as to how many people died, as the Bangladesh
Yes.
regime is claiming. And they said, we have no evidence. Nobody has given us any evidence. We can't even make a report. So
So
even the
it will
foreigners.
come out in February, madam. You're right. But Bangladeshi foreign minister was very slow to respond. I'm not a big fan of him, but he then told the media that they were late, and the report that you're talking about by the UNHCR
You know,
will come out in February, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Dr. Mubashir Hassan, Ambassador Veena Sikri, will have to leave it here. But it's very clear that
Thank you.
Bangladesh is going through critical time, that all eyes are on that country, the way that it's conducting. There has been sharp developments, fast-paced developments that has taken place, and it will have implications, not just for that country, but for its neighborhood as well. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo Story.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.